Today we look at one of my favourite tanks within World of Tanks, and it is a tank that is very surprising, one of the most underrated, at least in my opinion, and it is the T-34 / the T-34 Black, the black edition of the tank. I 3-marked the standard edition, so in today's video we're playing in the black edition, plus you get the benefits of having this 75% extra silver, and it was of course gifted by Fat Little Bernie, who managed to gift us a ton of tanks now. Really do appreciate that, but other than that, we're looking at Prokhorovka for today's first replay. Of course, we've got two, as with every video we have on the channel, and this one in particular is a really good showcase of what the T-34 can do. Unfortunately for us, I believe we're in a tier 10 game, so there are definitely some things that can go wrong in the game that we're in, although I'm not entirely sure that I am right in that assumption. But regardless of that, we have the key aspect of the T-34 that I want to talk to you about. The T-34 is a sniper. Now, you might think, hang on a minute, this is a heavy tank. The T-34 has one of the best accuracies I think I've ever seen on a heavy tank, even with all of the buffs that you can put on the tank. Or even if you don't have those, the tank is a monster, and it can hit tanks that maybe you wouldn't have even dreamed about. And I think that is to do with the dispersion of the tank on the move. This thing has pretty much no dispersion when moving, which means that you can basically hit everything that you're kind of looking at. And often you can track people on the move, which gives you assistance damage, or you can do a whole host of other things within the game to get yourself that damage and to be able to progress yourself within the game and your team as well. And that is something I've absolutely loved, and we are top tier in this game, so I want to clarify that. So T-34 on Prokhorovka, well, you might have mentioned me talking about the accuracy. Well, what else does the tank have? Because it can't just have the accuracy, and you'd be entirely right in that regard. This tank has really amazing turret armor, and with the recent buffs that the tank received as well by that top plate just above the gun mantlet right on top of the tank, used to be a weak point. They buffed it significantly, which means that it's no longer easily overmatched by high caliber guns within the game, and so they'll actually have to look down on it to be able to pen it, which is something that has significantly meant that the turret armor of the tank has got even better, because predominantly this is like a T-29 turret. So if you've ever played the T-29, which is the American heavy tank line in the tech tree, then you'll know exactly what I'm on about. Has the same sort of turret, except this one is slightly better. And the key thing that I think that you can use this tank is getting hold down, as with that line, if you've ever played it. Once again, making sure that you are kind of in a position where they can only see the turret. It's harder than it usually is, because World of Tanks at the moment has a lot of maps that are quite open, so not particularly too great for heavy tanks. So granted, you know, maybe you'll deal a lot more damage or be a lot more consistent with the tank as kind of it goes on. But within this, you can see the just gun singing all of the time and hitting its target, which is the key thing. One thing I do need to kind of let you down gently on is the DPM of the tank, and this is something that everyone complains about the T-34. It is a terrible, and I mean terrible, DPM tank. This has one of the lowest damage per minute within the game, which means that, you know, you're not going to be able to dish out as much punishment on the opponents as maybe you'd want to, and so that really lets the tank down massively. If it wasn't for that, however, the tank would be blatantly overpowered. This tank is just phenomenal in all other regards. If they do get your hull armor, unfortunately, you will be taking a ton of damage, so I'm not going to beat around that bush. The turret armor is really, really good. Hull armor, not so much. But as we talked about, the accuracy is really good, so it means that you can aim at people's tracks and pen them whilst swiveling. And I would highly recommend actually using the free aim when you're looking at trying to take people out in that mode. And if they're trying to circle you, you can use the free aim to really do quite well. Unfortunately for us, what we're having problems with is the fact that we just got ammo racked, which is very disappointing, and with a load of tanks surrounding us and a Barask in the back, it could be very, very painful, and artillery just has to sneeze on us, but he doesn't, and we managed to track the Barask for our teammate there. Unfortunately, we don't manage to get an actual damaging hit on him, which is disappointing. But there we go, we managed to come out alive, which is the key thing within this engagement. I wasn't expecting to, so anything like that is a bonus. The Barask has now turned his full gaze towards us, which is annoying, and we're probably going to take a hit here. And we managed to avoid the first one, but the second one plants itself nicely into the side armour of the tank. And of course, because the T-34 has your typical American side armour, which is like paper, mache, then yeah, we take the hit and we end up being taken out. But we did manage to deal 3,800 damage. I'll skip ahead to the actual result screen here at the end of the game, and you'll be able to see exactly what happened. 3,802 damage, 767 assistance, and with all of the black tanks, 153,000 silver for a good game, granted, but not necessarily the best one, and that's the 75% bonus silver coming into effect with the black tanks, which is amazing, and it really does add up over a number of games. Now then, what happens if the T-34 gets into an uncomfortable position at the beginning of the game? Can you still make it work? Because we all have those scenarios where maybe you made a very bad play or a misplay at the beginning of the game that left you on a kind of minuscule amount of health, or maybe you're in a terrible position that you can't get out of without actually getting taken out, so you just have to deal with it and take it how it comes. Well, this gameplay is going to showcase what that's like in the T-34. And the T-34 is, as you'd expect, a slow, heavy tank. It's not a fast one. You're not going to be able to get out of a lot of situations by running, so you're going to have to use the brute force of the tank, which doesn't always work to the as intended, and so yeah, it can be a little bit annoying to say the least. And you can see, especially with a 9.2 second reload to do 400 alpha, it can become very, very painful indeed. But what you'll see with the T-34 is that if you do manage to just be good at positioning the tank, the DPM doesn't become as limiting as maybe you would have thought it might have done. And so, yeah, you can lose hit points quickly in the tank if they manage to get the side armor or the rear armor or whatever, and definitely got very lucky bouncing off the back by the T-55A there. But yeah, if you do get unlucky and you lose a bit of hit points at the beginning of the game, it's not the end of the world, because you have turret armor that you can use, and if you're brave enough, maybe even if you're in a one shot, you could still try and use it. But yeah, it's definitely something you have to kind of deal with as it comes in the T-34, and you definitely need to think ahead. It's not a tank that you can just jump into and hope that it goes all alright, because 9 times out of 10, if you do that, you're going to end up back in the garage quicker than you can say hallelujah. But yeah, one thing I want to note is that if you do have standard or premium rounds in the T-34, you're probably not going to have too much trouble with penning the majority of opponents that you're fighting against, especially if they're similar tier. Pretty much everyone at the same tier you're going to be able to pen, even if they are kind of using their armor to the best of their ability. Unfortunately, as we say that, the Chrysler K manages to bounce around, although he was pretty well angled and we were firing standard rounds. But if your cash stack is not terrible on mortar tanks, you can fire a bit of premium rounds, which have insane penetration for a heavy tank. I believe it's 286 millimeters of penetration on a tier 8 heavy, meaning that you have almost got the penetration of some tank destroyers at tier 9, maybe even tier 10. Tank destroyers have penetration like that on their premium round. So yeah, you can really be able to go through the majority of opponents. I wouldn't really call that a negative, and there's not really any negatives to the tank other than the fact of that DPM. If you do miss or something like that, it can be painful to say the least. But in this sort of scenario where you kind of hold down and where you're just trying to kind of scope people out and get a few rounds in where you can, it can be nice, and it definitely can yield some pretty nice rewards, especially when the Borsig decides he's going to bounce off of you. One thing that it doesn't like is of course artillery, who can not bounce off of you, and because you're a big box and slab of hit points, 90% of the time you're taking a fat chunky hit. And when a Borsig decides to come round with a 15cm, it becomes even more painful, and we've lost all of our hit points within such a short period of time. Yeah, not something that you want to be doing in the T-34, and you can see exactly what I mean by the hull armour sucks within this tank. And something that you need to know if you are going to try and play this for any length of time, or if you're investing money into it, because this tank is very, very expensive to purchase. I believe it's about 14,000 gold if you want to purchase this in game, and of course it is so rare that often you probably won't get the chance to purchase it, so when you do, you have to take it in whatever bundle it comes in, because Wargaming typically put them in the bundles rather than sell them on their own. So yeah, not the nicest content and selling strategy that Wargaming have, but that's their elite and rare tanks that they just hide and sell every now and again. But you'll see that with the Lerva video as well. If you want to check that out, make sure to check that out at the end of the video. The Lerva video is a really, really good one to showcase a similar sort of heavy. If you're thinking about purchasing a tier 8 heavy, that one was a good alternative as well to the T-34. Has a couple of different more novel techniques of being able to use it than the T-34 does, but predominantly very, very similar. Good accuracy, solid turrets, and also a fairly okay mobility. They're not like a super heavy mouse sort of speed, but they're no like Ferrari either. So yeah, I guess it's just down to personal preference. You can see in this game, it's not a world beater game. We've not really like dealt with a lot of the opponents, and often that is the case in the T-34, sadly, because the mobility isn't the nicest to be able to re-engage targets that are further away from you. And so we're going to kind of finish up this game with 2,371 damage and 1,066 assistance, which is no bad feat, but it's probably a result that you could have improved on if there was just more tanks left on the enemy team. So unfortunately that wasn't the case, but today's video is all about the T-34, what the good and bad aspects are, and hopefully you enjoyed that. If you want to check out that Lerva video, it's on screen right now, and of course you can check out other gameplay and tank reviews that we've done on loads and loads of different tanks on World of Tanks console by checking the playlist as well. So thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you join me there, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.